Claude. All right. Welcome to the newest edition of the Sunny and G podcast. Live from G's house.
Straight up. Back again. Finally, kind of back to more regular schedule, regular programming here.
I know, a little got delayed there with some sports and, life in general.
And kind of a weird time, too, because playoffs are here, but it's playoffs for realistically NBA and NHL in the last series, too.
I know, it's awesome.
There's a shitload of stuff going on, but there's definitely the most, I guess, going on because you are at the championships now for both those leagues.
Even though I watch some baseball after basketball is done pretty much, and the hockey as well, there's not going to be much else. But then now it's time to enjoy summer, so...
Yeah, straight up. Now it's time to actually get ourselves out there and not even care about putting a TV on. Actually go play some ball.
So let's start off with the main event right now with the Heat Nuggets actually leading off 1-1. Did you think it was going to be anything? Do you think it was going to be 2-0 for any team or any? I was thinking it might be 2-0 for Nuggets though.
100%.
But then I was thinking about it after the more I thought about it. I'm like, you got to respect the Heat. Every time on paper they haven't been the favorites in any single matchup they've been in all series.
Yeah,
or all playoffs.
No, it's 100% true. They haven't been a favorite in many of the games. They're always an underdog, even betting wise. I think the only ones that they had where they weren't the underdog were a couple of the Miami games because it was a home game for some teams and because they proved that they can win on home court.
Yeah.
But obviously, kind of with this one, I was not expecting this just because Miami hasn't beaten Denver in, I think, ever.
Like 7 years.
Yeah, they haven't. And Denver hasn't lost a home game all season. Or no, not all season, but like all playoffs.
Yep.
And just that kind of coming into the elevation change, you're going from 6 meters above sea level, 6 feet to like over 5,000 feet above sea level. So I was kind of expecting the fatigue, but I think man, they've been persevering like crazy.
Miami is a really good conditioned team.
Yeah.
Like Miami, even Pat Riley, that was one of his things, right? Guys had to be in a certain amount of body fat.
Yeah, 100%.
No, all these guys are in shape no matter what. So I mean, if there's any team that's able to play in Denver conditions, it would have been the Miami Heat.
Yeah.
And they're the first team to actually beat them all year, like you said, in the playoffs anyways. Yeah. And even on top of that, I think Denver's the best the home team in the entire regular season as well. So not only it's been something that's been happening for quite some time now, right?
Yeah, and I think the Nuggets just kind of blundered that fourth quarter there. There was just like Michael Porter doing all his kind of stuff, and that can happen at any moment. Like a player could fall through. Defensively, they were just letting guys push. You got all these undrafted guys on Miami. They're just making crazy-ass plays, bailing guys out. They don't need a guy scoring 40-plus when you got like 3 guys being able to score 20 each. That's like enough right there to kind of get your team going, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like, look at the Nuggets, right? They had Jokic scored 40 of the points, and then the rest of I think, how many points they get around? Like, I think it was another 10. I think they had about another 60 points. About 40% of the points came from Jokic alone.
Yeah. And that's not a good sign.
Not a good sign. Then a lot of, even on top of that, I think what was worse was that he only had 3 assists.
Yeah.
When he only had 3 assists, because he's not a guy who's, he can score because he always makes the right play. If the defense gives him a chance to score, they're going to score. But if you're Miami, you're now making the other guys irrelevant because Jokic isn't getting those guys easy buckets. Yeah. And, Gordon, game 1, I think the first few minutes, he had 4 buckets. He just posted up guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And Miami made some adjustments, and now all of a sudden Jokic, they turned him into a scorer.
Yeah.
And all season, even including the playoffs, they were 0-4 when Jokic scored 40-plus throughout the season, 0-3 in the playoffs alone.
Yeah.
So
nobody bailing him out. And I think
the other way around, because then we 0-3 in the regular season. So on top of that, now it's just getting to the point where it seems like Miami has sort of figured out what the Nuggets are good at, and they're taking away with the zone defense, especially like you mentioned in the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
which is shutting down other guys right now too that were going off in the first game.
Yeah, 100%. They definitely played it smart there by letting Jokic shoot. But again, all the games we've seen them win, he's averaging a triple-double. So if he's not getting close to a triple-double every game, it's most likely a loss because he didn't get the other guys into it enough, or when he did make those passes, they didn't put a basket. So that, tick isn't going up. Those assists aren't going up. And until we see 8 to 10 a game, that's when they had a good game because he got the ball around and those guys made the shots because you don't get an assist without the other guy scoring, right? Like you have to rely on the other guys to make their
He
shots.
makes it so much easier for them
So
to
much
score
easier.
too, right? With these passes that he makes, and he was still like, you know, he tried to make the passes, and on top of that, there was a lot of guys that missed some open shots too. Like Mike, you know, talking about Porter right now, he missed a bunch.
He did.
Murray was the no-show after, you know, after the first game, and he's been pretty consistent all year himself. I mean, that's probably the first bad game he's had since I think sometime in the Phoenix Sun series.
Yeah,
right.
And for him, a bad game is like still around the 20-point mark. So at least he's getting like something done. He has a bad day on shooting, but still gets near 20 points. But that means like how you just named Michael Porter, a guy like him has to step up. And I think, remember he got hit in that face shot?
The elbow.
I think after he got hit with that, he was just playing a little safer. He looks like he might be one of the next guys that are going to be on the list to be wearing one of those face masks for some contusion or something that happened to the face, because he just didn't seem like he wanted to kind of push the pace again into the paint. He kind of backed off after that hit was done, and people saw the review, and I know a lot of people are yelling, oh my God, it's just a light tap, like it's a bullshit hit, but man, go play against a guy that weighs like freaking over 200 pounds and gets slapped by him across the face. You're gonna freaking feel something.
Bam's a strong dude. Yeah, that ain't like anybody.
He's probably the strongest guy out of that series overall, because the size he is, and he's ripped for the height he is, man.
He's
like
a
crazy
strong
ripped.
dude, and obviously, like, it wasn't a malicious or dirty play. It just happened in the, you know, course of a game, right? He just went for the ball and he hit him in the face.
Yep.
He wasn't trying to hit anybody, right?
That was an unintentional hit. He didn't mean to do it. It just caught him in a weird spot.
Speaking of Bam, though, I think he had a phenomenal game. Scoring, passing, right? Playing defense. Being able, you know, with Miami switching it up by bringing in Kevin Love for some more minutes, right? He played 20-plus minutes himself. It freed up Bam to kind of be a bit more of a rover in certain situations, and he stepped up to the plate. You know, we were talking earlier about guys not getting 20-plus, right? And Bam's been, I think he had 20-something the first game. I think he scored a little bit less in this game. I don't know the exact number, but it was like...
He's the leading scorer. I think he scored 26 in this one.
Did he?
I think
did he score
went
for Miami again?
I think so. If you check that one again.
But at the same
I
time,
know he went,
you know, we were talking about how, you know, Jimmy hasn't quite been himself in the first couple games. He had his moments, but he hasn't quite been himself as well, right?
No.
These guys are all doing a collective effort to step up against, you know, they're against the Nuggets. Or the Nuggets have Jokic, and yeah, they have a lot of other great players, but after Jokic, any one of the other two any of the other players can, you know, say there's a second best player of the series. And right now, Bam has probably been just as good as Jokic if you average out the two games. But
100%.
I mean, just because the series is tied at 1-1, not for the fact that, you know, Jokic has got more points and doing all that kind of stuff and his efficiency, but it seems like the Heat have slowly started to figure out the Nuggets, right?
Yeah.
They started to kind of, you know, play it a little bit more zone defense, taking Murray out of the pick and roll, which he was killing teams on right now. Michael Porter Jr. hasn't done jack shit in 2 games. He played great defense the first game.
Yeah, he did.
But he didn't do anything last game on the defensive side. On all the open threes that Miami were getting.
Yeah.
Right? And they made him pay this time because they didn't, you know, they went 0-9. I think Strauss was like 0-9. And then Gabe Vincent was like 0-7 or something like that. And then all of a sudden, both those guys had a great second game.
Really good games. And I think now, especially in the finals, because you've watched a team play, so you got more film on them in the postseason of what they're actually doing different, the different types of plays they're trying to set. Because you don't want to be a stagnant team coming in from the season into the playoffs and play the very similar style. You got to kind of pick up the pace on everything. And I think they watched enough film now to watch where Jokic is looking for those passes. Like we were talking about Butler going on Murray one-on-one, that whole kind of dynamic of just chasing him around and making sure that that pass doesn't come in. Because if one thing Jimmy can do, hit me buckets, is get steals.
Yeah.
He's a high steal guy, like what he did that whole last thing with Boston Celtics. He was their leading steal guy, at least defensively. So I think that's going to be a big part. That one-on-one matchup's going to be huge if they continue that.
And that's the thing with Jimmy, too, is that even if he's not scoring, he's still able to impact the game in so many other ways. His defense is phenomenal. He gets steals. He gets active, right? He had a few moments there in the fourth quarter where he got the bucket, hit the 3 when a play that nothing was happening. Then he comes down and gets like a cheap foul, and Nuggets were slowly starting to get a little pissy. Like throughout the game, you notice the way they're Jokic wasn't getting calls. They were getting calls going the other way. They started to lose some focus. And Jimmy just kept on kind of, wasn't always scoring, but he was making the right pass, made the right play. When they needed the occasional bucket, he had a little flurry there of his 8 points. But, they're like at the start you mentioned, they're getting help from all these different guys. And now the Nuggets turn to get help outside of Jokic. Because Murray had a great first game. Jokic had a phenomenal first game. And they had enough from the other guys to be able to come out and have, beat the Heat at the end.
Yep.
But last game, other than Jokic, and you know what, that Christian Braun guy came out and had some good moments too with defense and making some shots. But they need Murray to step up. They definitely need KCP and Porter to step up
100%.
big time.
Yeah, they're going to need that 3 points. But what do you think Denver is going to try to do to adjust to what, I guess, Miami adjusted to?
Well, I think you might have to play Brown more minutes if you're getting the best defensive matchup too, right? So that makes you a little bit smaller, unfortunately. But the problem is KCP, not only the KCP's offensive game having some issues, he had 2 dumb fouls on the guys shooting the threes.
Yeah.
That's 6 free throws that added up to the end of the game that could have made a huge difference. Yeah. They were clean. They were fouls. There weren't even plays where you could argue against it. If you weren't a fan of the team and you were going, looking at it objectively, it was a foul at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And he did it twice, and one of them was on a possession where there was no time left on the clock. Remember, Strus had it at the top of the 3.
Yeah.
He was just going to chuck up the 3 because there was no time left in the clock. Stupid foul there. Then again at the end of the play later on, when the guy's in the corner, goes underneath them, makes them shoot 3 more free throws, and he isn't doing it on the offensive end. So you got 2 guys and 3 guys that didn't really show up. You're not going to beat Miami if Jokic is the only scorer. And on top of that, you make him just a scorer.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you can't make him just a pure scorer. He's going to have to do more. And if we just got to keep watching his assists, that number, man. If that number goes up, you know that other guys are doing something. That number stays down because he's not a guy that likes to just go out and score like crazy.
Yeah.
He actually likes to pass it around and be like, I'm willing to just score 30 points. That's a solid thing for me because he is going to make it to the line a number of times. And he's going to have to he does make threes, so his points can get to 30, but we have to see that assist number go up.
It's the assist that's a big difference for him. And it's crazy how much, how well the team does when he doesn't get those assists and when he does. But that's what, seems like the Heat have figured out with the Nuggets right now is you make him a scorer, you shut down the other guys, and you live it. Like Jokic is going to make the right play, and that right play is sometimes just scoring. But if he's scoring and no one else is scoring, Heat are going to live with it because no one else stepped up last game, and can they step up one more time? So I think as far as adjustments and things like that go, some of it's going to be Nuggets just have to play smarter.
They do.
We can't give up these dumb free throws. They had more turnovers again than Miami, and Miami plays good defense too. So it may, that was part of the reason. But if you're the Nuggets right now, you got to get your composure back.
Yeah.
You got to make smart plays. Stop giving them these stupid fouls. I don't think they don't have to make a ton of adjustments, but what we were saying before, they got to clean up some plays, stop doing these stupid fouls, right? And then on top of that, just follow your man. Like the amount of times they would just over panic on certain players because Miami's offense is always constant motion, right? They're not necessarily going to beat you because the plays are fancy, but the guys are always moving around to different spots. They're not staying static. And when you're the defense, you just have to communicate and cover guys. If you're going to switch, which Nuggets should be able to because they're a length to your team, just communicate with guys, right? Some of it's just going back to the fundamentals and doing that. And obviously Miami's a good team. There's a reason they've beat all these teams that have been favored over them for most of the playoffs, right? So I think if Nuggets can just clean up some of their stupid plays that they made and gain some of that composure that they showed earlier, I think they'll be fine.
Yep.
Right? So, and I don't know what, Jimmy hasn't been quite himself since the Knicks series, so we'll see what happens with him. Duncan Robinson had looked like Tracy McGrady for 2 minutes, right? With all the threes and everything else that he was hitting. So
he's the dark horse right now of this series. If he can stay at that kind of a pace and just get them enough buckets, he doesn't have to obviously be the star.
Nope.
But you're right. There was a spotlight on him. He was doing enough where everybody kind of had to talk about him because he was a problem.
That's the kind of player he is. He's a microwave scorer, man. When he get he'll shoot all game long, and even when he's missing, you still have to respect him because that one, all it takes is one shot for those kind of guys.
Yeah.
They're hot again. Next thing you know, they had 2-3 threes, which he pretty much did himself, right? He had 2 threes and a cut on a basket and scored on top of that. So, I think they're doing fine the way they're playing right now. I don't think they have to make as many adjustments. I think it's Nuggets that need to start making some more plays. But there was also talk about Hero possibly coming back for Game 3.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think you mess with anything right now, to be honest. I think you keep Hero out because they've done fine without him. And no offense to Hero, but with the rust that he's had, can he shoot the same amount of threes? Otherwise, Jokic is going to eat him alive on defense.
100%.
Right? He's by far probably the Miami's worst defender if he's on the court.
Yeah.
Other than Robinson.
And I think, that's, I think, probably the best strategy for now. Just sit him on the bench. Make him a bench player for now. But if you come into the games where you are, losing and you're kind of losing some momentum, maybe you can bring him in for a little bit of minutes just to see if there's a spark or anything. If not, bang, back to the bench, right?
Back to the bench
how the Lakers did basically with D'Angelo. They'd bring him in. He wasn't starting anymore. And if they saw him, do 2 turnovers and maybe score 2 points and miss like 5 other shots, they're like, you know what? You're back at the bench. You're putting Schroeder or somebody else back in there. So I think he's more of just like an extra body of when somebody of his position's tired or they need some minutes, added on, or just try something different, some different matchups just to mess around with Denver. But I don't think he's going to be like a game changer. And he could be, but I'm saying like a higher percentage chance against him of being the game changer right now.
Well,
he could blow us away. I don't know.
I mean, I think when you've been off for that long, I think it's going to be tough. So
Oh, yeah.
We'll see what happens. I mean, right now, the ball's in the Nuggets court right now. They're the one who's on the defensive right now. They got to make some moves. Maybe they switch up somebody in the starting lineup. I don't know. But, this Miami, the Heat are very happy that it's a 1-1 right now. That's all they wanted. And now they have the momentum going into Game 3. We'll see what counters that, Nuggets can make. They got to, obviously, they've scored against the zone. But it's been, it's been really good at the beginning of the game and then not so much at the end of the fourth quarter, right? It gets them out of their momentum, which is all it's meant to do. Gets Murray out of his pick and roll action. And I think, if Miami wins Game 3, I don't know if the Nuggets are going to be able to win 4 with the amount of momentum they have. They need to win the Game 3 because I think Miami's a good adjustment team.
Yeah. And worst case, like they would have to come back 1-1. Best case, you obviously want 2-0.
Yeah.
But you do not want to come back 0-2.
I don't think it's shaping up to be one of those games, especially after the first couple of games where Heat have shown that they're capable of.
They are.
But
it could go back and forth.
It could go back and forth, right? I mean, I think, in my opinion, my prediction at the beginning, it's a bit of a cop-out, I'm going to say it right now, is I picked Miami or Nuggets in 6.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not 5, not 7. I picked either team to win in 6 games.
Exactly.
I don't know. That was my prediction, and I know I'm picking 2 teams. So,
and I think,
but it was going to go to Game 6. I was saying it was going to go to Game 6 regardless.
It is a good prediction because I think whoever wins Game 3 has a very, very high percentage chance of taking Game 4 also.
Yeah.
Because you're in the same location. It's not like there's much of a change. You're not going back to Denver, nothing. You're just staying in that same spot. So if somebody can win 2 of those games, and it could be any one of those 2, I think that's going to be the turn of the tide and probably be the winner of this series.
Well, Miami is a bit of an older team compared to the Nuggets as well. So the only other thing that we'll see what happens in impact-wise is that Games 3 and 4 are only a 1-day rest. So they play Wednesday and then they play Friday again, whereas every other game, the first 2 games have had next 2 days of rest in between. So I don't know how Game 3 is going to go. But Miami's a bit of an older team, but they're also really well conditioned. We'll see what happens. Game 3 is, feeds into Game 4 with a 1 day off. But I'm looking forward to it. I've been really happy that it's turned into a series.
Yeah,
a lot of people were shit talking that it wasn't going to be exciting, finals and things like that. But if you're a fan of basketball, this is what it's all about at the end of the day, right? You don't need the LeBrons and the Currys and everyone else to make it interesting, right? Basketball is basketball.
You need like a young.
And it's great. Like either way, it's going to be Jimmy Butler leading, the first ever series, probably one of the best playoff runs of all time in any sport.
Yeah.
Not just basketball. And then you've got Jokic on the other side, the next generational player, possibly winning his first title. So either way, it's going to be so many storylines coming out of this.
So many. And
I can't wait to see what happens in the Game 3 right now.
Straight up. And another funny stat that I just remembered right now was the Heat have never won, whenever they won a championship, they never won the first game. So you got Shaquille O'Neal, Dwayne Wade, and Dwayne Wade twice
LeBron.
with LeBron. So he did it with Shaq, and he did it with LeBron. So he's had it twice where he hasn't won the first game of the NBA Finals, but it's actually led to, and I think it was actually both NBA Finals for LeBron. They're both Game 1 losses.
Yep.
So they haven't won a game. You got to attack and how you got to do it, and Miami's doing it. So
We'll see what happens.
be fun.
Man. I'm looking forward to Wednesday's game, so we'll have it on while we're playing some baseball too. So
and leading kind of to our next discussion is another team that hasn't been playing for a while. They've been out of the playoffs.
Yep.
But they got some shit still going on there, and the GM for the Warriors is gone.
End of an era, I guess, if you want to call it that way, as far as them.
At least executive level for sure.
Executive level, and that's what makes it tricky right now. They won 4 titles with them, right? And then 6 NBA Finals appearances. Yep. When they were in the playoffs, they essentially made it to. When they made the playoffs, they pretty much made it to the semifinals or the finals every year, other than when they had injuries.
Well, they never lost a playoff series in the West.
Until this year,
Lakers.
This is the first year.
First time. So that just shows you how dominant and scary of a fucking team that still is. And you are leaving almost still at the. I'd still think the team's like maybe at the end of the prime, but still in a prime.
Well,
like they're still able to make it.
Curry's still Curry. You saw what he just can't do it as long and by himself, right? So last year they obviously had help from Poole and all these other guys, and Klay Thompson had a bit of revival. I mean, other than probably Draymond and
Wiggins was huge.
Wiggins was huge, but Wiggins also took 2 months off in the middle of the season.
This season he was bad,
but that's what I'm saying though. Yeah. He played all the games. He was huge. He was good. Yeah. He was good in the series, but he wasn't quite what he was, in last year. Neither was any of the team, right?
No, so MVP last year.
They're at a point now where I feel like Golden State's at a crossroads, right? Yeah. The GM's leaving. Draymond can opt out. Klay can opt out. There's no way in hell Klay's opting out from $43 million for what his knee. He's basically on one knee when he plays.
Golden State forever.
Right? So what do you do if you're Golden State? And I was looking at some of the options, like do you trade certain guys? Do you extend certain guys? Right? The new CBA comes in, the harsher penalties. You're going to obviously need a new GM. There's new contracts. But other than, obviously they have to figure out the Draymond piece of it. And I think the next decision is going to be what happens with Poole.
Yeah.
But if you're the Nuggets, I'm not the Nuggets, the Warriors, if you just waited 1 year, right? Klay Thompson is, his contract is over next year. Obviously, they'll have to figure out the Draymond situation. Kuminga, I don't know. I assume he might get traded because he's going to be up for another contract in, I think, a year as well.
Yep.
Right? So but at the same time, like this is Golden State, this is Curry in his prime. I think you kind of owe it to him not to take a year off to reset your team financially with all the penalties and then come back next year, right? Yep. So what do you think? Who do you think is somebody getting traded? Who do you think is going to be they got a new GM decision to make, first of all. Yep. Do they go internal? Do they go external? Right? They were looking at the internal options where his son and then Mike Dunleavy Jr. Yeah. Because they've both been with the organization for quite some time, or do you get that external candidate to come in from a different organization with a different set of eyes?
I think just being Golden State and kind of who they are, I think they're going to look on both sides for sure. They're going to bring in everybody they can in for an interview because you want to have a big pool of candidates, right? You don't want a couple of guys and then that's all you're going to rely on, that strategy. You want to hear as many things as possible because they're a stats team. They're a team that looks at everybody and everything that they have to say and try to use it to any advantages you can. And we've seen what Golden State's put together, and like, not only is it on a GM to do everything, the scouts matter a lot too. That's a big connection. So at least, you are losing a general manager for Golden State, but you still do have a lot of your core executives and your corporate team there.
If you look at the draft picks, they haven't done so well in the last years. I mean, they haven't. Like, obviously, they hit up Poole, who's a late pick, but then he didn't have a great season this year, but obviously helped them win a title last year. Kuminga and Lee, they haven't grown to the players that they're supposed to be as well, right? And other than that, like they traded Wiseman too. They picked him incorrectly, right?
Player,
right. I'm not saying that LaMelo Ball would have worked better with them because they had obviously Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, but all these they could have had. Like, obviously, everybody could have had Tyrese Halliburton that year, right? He ended up going 11th to the Pacers, but Could you imagine if they had picked up him that year? So instead of Poole, they got Steph Curry and Tyrese Halliburton right now with all these other guys, right? So it's so hard. And if I were the Warriors, it's hard to, like, it's harder for them to sign guys too, right? They're so financially strapped.
Yeah.
And Klay Thompson, like, for example, do you re-sign him to a longer deal and get him to make him less this year? Or do you just say, hey, we got one more year, Klay, take your money, and then we'll figure it out next year with you, right?
Yeah, that's probably the best option right there. I think you hit it.
This could be awkward asking him for a pay cut. I mean, even though at the same time he's not worth $43 million.
And he, like, asking for the pay cut, I think it's more harder to ask a guy for a pay cut when the guy's, like, outperforming what you were expecting from him, but he's not outperforming, and he kind of knows it. He's kind of hit a slump right now. It's not all his fault. He's got some crazy injuries. It's like all that shit adds up.
And they won a title with him.
Yeah.
Like, he came back and he helped them win a title, right?
100%.
It's only a year ago that he was helping them win a title, and a year later he's got the bum knee, which unfortunately with the injuries that he's had, like you're saying in the last few years with the Achilles, the ACL, he's a shell of what he used to be, right? He's never going to be that Klay, but the unfortunate thing with him is he doesn't even get to the line anymore. He's not a free throw guy either, right? So if he's not bringing his 3-and-D, what else can he offer you, right?
Yeah.
So, and then on top of that, Draymond's potentially be a free agent this year. So he's getting, I think he's like 33, 34 himself. And guys like him, where they don't have that athleticism or that elite, like Curry's body's in phenomenal shape. I wouldn't say that Draymond's the same kind of shape that Curry's in.
Yeah.
And so, how many good years does Draymond have left in him too? Because once he goes sideways, he's never been a shooter.
Yeah.
Right? At least some of the guys like Steph Curry's still able to shoot, so he's got a value when he's on the court. But Draymond, when his shooting, like when his athleticism, playmaking, all defense goes because he doesn't have it, he's not going to be able to shoot in that lineup either. And that's part of the issues that Golden State had this year was they couldn't get enough shooters around, Steph Curry. And that's the other thing they'll have to figure out is who stays, who goes, if you're on, candidates right now too, right? So
could be their last dance here. Coming
our last dance, legitimate last dance, or whatever you want to call it in Golden State, right?
Yeah,
so,
like it'd be a different title, I guess, but the similar profile, the last dance.
Steve Kerr's on the team there. He was on the team again, right? So
he's going through all of it.
He's like, oh no, not again. So speaking of some other NBA news, the draft's coming up here in a few weeks. I know we've been pretty heavy on the Golden State and the playoff stock here, but I wanted to kind of get your opinion on, obviously Wemby's going to go to the Spurs. I mean, unless they got some, dirt on the GM there or something like that, he's going to go first overall. But number 2 and 3, what would you do if you're Charlotte and what do you call the Trailblazers? Because right now, Scoot's the best player. A second best player consensus, right?
Yeah.
Scoot and Brandon Miller, I think, is 3, but he's had that gun issues with Alabama, right? He gave the gun to one of his teammates, and he is, his interviews haven't gone as well. But Scoot is the best player. He's obviously, and he's been working out with Steph Curry, who's from Charlotte, right? So obviously there might be some intel exchange right there, but what do you do if you're Charlotte? Do you go for the better fit? Which I think would be a mistake, personally. I think you go for the best player, and then you figure it out later. Because who's to say that LaMelo isn't better than Scoot?
That's true.
Right? Whatever, if Scoot's the better player, then maybe you trade LaMelo for some help on the wing, and you have your starting point guard in Scoot.
Yeah, that's true. If they're that's probably their biggest decision. If you already have a point guard that's doing so well, are you going to throw in another point guard?
Yep.
Or do you now just go in and get, how you said, Brandon is one of those top 3 prospects?
Yeah.
At least you got a shooter now out of it too. So do you want the same as what you already have, or do you want to help that guy that you already have to get more spacing by having a shooter involved?
And I think Scoot can become a better shooter.
He could, for sure.
He isn't, but you know what? Everybody's seen how good Charlotte has drafted ever since Michael Jordan's taken over that team. They've been one of the worst teams in the league, right?
Yep.
They don't draft well. And, the obvious thing would be take the best player, right? Take the best player and you figure it out later, because you can always look what happened with Sacramento, right? Tyrese Halliburton was the best player. And I can't believe I'm using Sacramento Kings as a good example. But in this case, they picked the best player, which was Tyrese Haliburton. In the end, they ended up trading him because De'Aaron Fox was just as good of a player, if not better, right? Anyways, but they chose the best player, and they got Domantas Sabonis out of it. That's the moral of the story.
Yeah.
If you're Charlotte, take the best fucking player, because no matter what, I think you're going to run into issues where the guy's a better fit, but if he's not a better player, like Scoot could potentially be a franchise change. And not saying Brandon Miller can't.
Yeah.
But so far from what we've read, the people that we've talked to, there's a bit of a gap between 1 and 2, and then 2 and 3. After 3, it goes sideways because you don't know who's going to necessarily be the next draft picks. There's the Twins. There's a few other. The Thompson twins are in there too, right? They got Grady Dick and some other players. But I think 2 and 3 is going to be huge, because then you also go into, let's say Charlotte takes Brandon Miller, right? Number 2 overall. Yeah. You got Bello, and what do you do if you're Portland now? They got a point guard already in Damian Lillard. Yeah. Right? And now you're going to go, and they already had Anthony Simons. He's like 6'3". Yeah. Dame's like 6'3". Scoot's like 6'2" himself.
Straight up.
You can't play all 3 of these guys at the same time.
That's why I think I'm thinking that Charlotte, if they end up taking Scoot, I think Brandon Miller goes Blazers because of his size too. Like, he's a big boy,
fit, but he's not the better player.
Yeah,
that's the issue.
Thing. Yeah,
that's the issue.
That's
right?
the other thing. Because if you already kind of hit it on the nose right there with Damian Lillard's already running your point guard. Yeah, he's wanting a championship now. He's not just sticking around. Hey, let's just do a full-on rebuild. So around him now, you don't want to bring in somebody the same position, but you need to add on to that same line of who else can you add, and somebody big. Because Portland, like, they're just so used to having these tiny guys that fly around, and then that one center that, like, when they had McCollum and all these guys, but you need guys that are also big too.
And Nurkic hasn't been the same since since he up his leg a few years ago, right? So they drafted a couple of good guys, but do you think Lillard's best chance to win his title is in Portland? It's such a fucked up situation, right? Because it seems like everyone on the outside that was like, they're going to trade Dame. Yeah. But Dame's never gone out and like said, hey, I want to be traded.
Never.
Right? He's, maybe he's been, sometimes he hasn't said outright that he's wanted to stay there. But more often than not, when he's been asked the same question, he usually says he wants to stay there long term.
And he's usually against it because in his recent rap song, because he just got rap.
Yeah.
In the recent song, he talks about how, they keep telling me to go to the Lakers. Yeah. Like, he literally has to say, they're telling me to go to the Lakers, but why would I do, like, kind of whatever lines he says, but he's kind of trying to just state that, why would I just go to a team that's going to win when I've been trying to rock it for the city? But it's like, how long can you do that if you're only looking for a championship? Like, if your goal is just to be like, hey, I want to rep this city, Giannis style, like all these guys that have stayed with their cities and just try to ride it out. Yeah. How long can you do that if management isn't trying to find you guys, like how Giannis did have a team built around him? It's not like it's just Giannis running that fucking team. There's some good-ass guys playing with it.
Well, the other problem that I was looking at the other day is that where do you trade Damian Lillard to that doesn't already have a point guard as well, right? Like, teams, they're not, Houston Rockets aren't going to just trade for Damian Lillard, right?
No.
But there's teams out there that need a point guard, but do they need a point guard who's going to be making as much money? Do you know how much money Damian Lillard is going to be making the next few years?
He's making more than Harden, right?
Oh, he's making a lot of money, man. I'll show you here in a second. I was looking, I think he's making 40, I think it jumps to like 60-something million in the last year of his contract. So he's making 40, his new extension just kicked in right now. So here's what he's going to be making in the next few years right now. He's making $45 million this year, and then he's making another $48 million next year, right?
Yeah.
Year after that, 35-year-old Dame's making $58 million, and a 36-year-old Dame is making $63 fucking million here.
That's how you.
And a 36-year-old making $63 million. And no offense to Dame, as great of a player as he is, he's going to be able to score, but he gives up so many points at the other end, too, that you can't just pair him with another guard, because we've seen that what happens. No. They never made it far in the playoffs with CJ McCollum. No. Right? And even if all the teams that have generally gone far, if you're undersized, you have to be able to play defense at least, right? You can't just have multiple undersized guys not playing defense and expect this team to win, and then, without the defensive length that the modern NBA needs, right? Yeah. They need shooters, and you need length on both sides to be able to do it.
No, you're exactly right on that, because another stat for all these short point guards is they get the steals, but defensively, that could not mean much. So you got 1 to 2 steals in that game. Defensively, like, okay, you stole the ball twice, but what did you do the entire rest of those 48 minutes?
And how often did you gamble to get those steals?
100%. He's kind of got that point guard style right now. That Chris Paul, he'll get you the points, but defensively, he's just not big enough to like do much. Like, he's not gonna get blocks. That's gonna be rare. If he does, it's probably somebody similar size to him, and he caught him off guard. But he's not a guy that's gonna be out there getting all these blocks. So
they're in a tough spot.
They are in a tough spot.
Right? Because if he wants to win a title, it's not going to happen in Portland, because these guys that they're drafting, as good as the players they might turn out to be, they're still a few years away from becoming those kind of players, right?
Yeah.
And Lillard's not getting any younger. And so basically by the time Lillard is now getting the end of his contract, these guys are becoming better. But Lillard's not the same player that he will be this year. Last year,
no,
he was an All-NBA. I don't know if he got I think he got All-NBA by the end of it. But he was on pace to do it, and then I know...
Remember he got injured for like a bunch of games.
I didn't have that information on me right now.
This year they just sat his ass, right?
Well, this did it last year too, right? To win, to get a higher draft, and it worked out. They ended up getting they went up to 3rd pick overall, right? Yep. So at the same time, it kind of like, well, they did end up doing it correctly, but yeah, so he did get named to All-NBA 13. So he did get the All-NBA, but where do you trade him? Who do you trade him for? Because at the other end, you also have to be able to retain salary. Like you're gonna have to send some salary, or take some salary back. And with the news restrictions, not as many teams are going to be available to make the same kind of trades as you would have been able to do in past years, right? Yep. So some of the options that are, unless you're a team that really wants to somehow go for it this year, there's not a lot of options for him.
I was just looking at like a couple of the top picks and who they're compared to in the league. So they have kind of the exact style. Like they basically watch all the shots, all the dunks, whatever they do, and analyze it to an NBA players. So obviously Wemby's got, like, they're saying the tallest Kevin Durant looking kind of
he's like a cross between Gobert and that guy.
And then Brandon Miller is like more well-rounded. Rudy Gay, around that kind of style of play.
He's like a 3-4. He's a guy. I think he's like 6'8", 6'9", 200.
But then you got Scoot, who's actually like the closest he is to a prime Westbrook. Best case scenario, a D-Rose style player. Which is both guys, as we know, play their fucking hearts out. But playing your heart out doesn't win you much sometimes. It could blow your fucking body apart.
Well, and that's the thing with Scoot, though, is that if he can develop a shot, because he's got the work ethic to do so, if he develops enough of a three-point shot to complement the rest of the game, he's going to be a phenomenal player.
Yeah.
The thing with Brandon Miller is that as great of as a player he might turn out to be, he doesn't have the same upside that Scoot has.
No.
Right? He's not even a safer pick because he's off the court issues, right? As well. So, but he is like 6'9". He's a perfect kind of, he can be a 3-4. He's made for the modern NBA. He's got length. He can shoot. He can do all these things. But is he the better fit or the better player? And if I'm the Hornets, and we've seen what they've done ever since Michael Jordan has come in, been the owner of the team, they're going to make the worst pick. So if you're putting yourself in Michael Jordan's shoes, who's the worst player out of those two? I would say it's Miller or Scoot, even though Scoot, they're probably going to pick Miller for that reason because it's not the smart decision.
Yeah.
And then you go into, like, let's say, Blazers now come to it.
You kind of have to take Scoot. And I think if they take Scoot, this is my, best guess right now, is if they end up getting Scoot, Dame gets traded. Because there's no way you can have both guys. You got this crazy rookie coming up.
Too. You paid Simons last year on extension.
So now it's like, man, that's the only guy you dump, and then you got to think of which team's willing to take on that value.
Well, that's the problem is that you not only have to trade, like you signed Simons, his deal kicks in this year, so he's going to be making $24 million this year himself, right? So he's making $24 million. You're paying Dame all the money. You got Scoot or possibly Brandon Miller as your pick, right? But even if you don't land Scoot and you end up landing Brandon, that's another young guy who's like 19 years old.
Yep.
Dame doesn't have years left on his career where he's going to be able to, wait around. But if he wants to do that's like, he's going to be stuck in a situation by the time he's lost his skills. The team's going to be good, and then you can't really trade him at that point to get any value for him, right? Yeah. So, or do you trade him now? Right? You're like, Anfree Simons is going to be 24 pretty soon here. Or, I think in a few days himself.
Yeah.
Scoot's like 19, 20. or Brandon Miller is going to be young, right? Do you just go all in on a rebuild and say, hey, we're going to trade Lillard.
Hell yeah.
We're going to try to get rid of veterans, and we're going to regroup. And this is because we can't win it the title the way we're doing right now, right? So
they've tried.
So nothing about basketball. I know there's some other sports going on right now.
We're done with the NBA.
Like Vince Carter, it's over.
It's over.
It's over.
It's over. We're done with that. We'll move on to just, I guess we'll touch on the NFL. We got freaking mandatory camp. Guys are showing up.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of guys that aren't showing up for either contract reasons or personal reasons on some guys.
Yeah.
I know definitely the Cleveland Browns got a couple of players that did show up to mini camp, mandatory camp, but a couple of guys that didn't because there's been just strings of robberies going on in that Cleveland area. And, you know, these guys are obviously being targeted because you know who your athletes are in town, right? And those are the best targets because they have chains on and whatnot, and they're partying. Like this happened, one of them happened
Monday
at 3:30 a.m. So, you know,
I mean, they're off season, so
they're off season.
They don't have the same 9 to 5 we do.
Exactly, and now that mandatory camp's here, it's just crazy to kind of see the guys that are there, the guys that are, you know, kind of waiting for their contracts to sign in, and some guys that are coming in without a contract signed that are willing to like put in the fucking work to show, hey, we're still here, we want to be here, let's get that contract like, you know, negotiated.
Well, then that's the way, like you said before, there's got to be guys who aren't showing up because they've got some personal issues, maybe for guys in the you know, the Browns there with the string of robberies and other unfortunate things that have happened to those athletes. But then you've got guys like Nick Bosa, Quinnen Williams, two very important players to their team's prospective, you know, Super Bowl chances.
Yep.
You know, if you hadn't heard, Aaron Rodgers now a QB for the Jets.
Yeah.
And the the 49ers could probably find like some guy working at Walmart off the street and turn him into a quarterback that gets him to the semifinals.
Starting quarterback almost.
You know, so no disrespect to Brock and Purdy or anybody like that, but they always seem to make it work. But, you know, at the end of these guys deserve to get paid. They put in the work. Hopefully they do get paid.
Yep.
You know, and then there's other guys that are going to be having their contract situations that'll be coming up as well. I know some of them, you know, most of all the fifth player options have been already answered.
I'm kind of hoping, you know, that Nick Bosa one makes me happy just because he's in my division.
Yeah.
So I like some animosity, and, you know, my, like, outcome out of this that I want is him gone to a totally different division.
But that's so in hell that's out. Did he win Defensive Player of the Year last year?
Yeah, he's the scariest guy to play because not only is he, one of the best defensive players we've seen, the guy can fucking injure somebody in a heartbeat with the way he tackles some guys, man.
He's a tough player, man. And your brother is, right? So, I mean, from a personal level, I totally get it, right? Like, you don't want Nick Bosa in your fucking division, but
get paid somewhere else, brother. You deserve to get paid a lot of money.
I think you could see Seattle fans chipping in to pay his salary.
Hell yeah. Like, come over here, man. We'll start paying a tax that just goes to this guy's salary.
So, and, you know, for the most part, it's kind of, you know, we'll see what happens with the mandatory minicamp, but other than that mandatory minicamp coming up, it's going to be pretty much quiet season for the NFL. So
very nice and quiet off season right now. Usually in the off season, you have like some horrendous stories.
I think
like,
it's coming up though. It's the worst time of the year is between after mandatory minicamp because now it's like summer.
Yeah.
Like they don't until training camp, which is usually start of August for most teams, end of July. So they've got about, like a 6 weeks in there where they have, it's summer weather. You know, a lot of the players, they go back to their hometowns too, right? And they've got friends and other things and other situations right there as well. Yeah. Not just NFL, it's in all sports across, you know, especially, but NFL with the way their offseason is structured, a lot of these guys they've had free time. They're going to go back for a little bit. You've got July, 4th weekend. Everyone always makes the, who's the guy, JP? Remember when he burnt his on one of his fingers, right? They always make the fireworks warnings every year and shit like that. So it's that time of the year where it's getting quiet, but, you know, it's still some NFL news trickling in. We'll see who guys get signed to extensions, and then, we'll kind of go from there. But it seems like, you know, we're talking about the main event. We started off with Nuggets, but the other co-main event, you know, the co-main event for today was PGA and fucking Live.
Yeah.
What is this, WCW and WWE coming together again?
That was just a shock. I don't think, we don't even play on the PGA. Yeah. It was a shock to those players. So our shock is nothing compared to what those guys are going through at this moment.
Man, I would be choked if I was some of those players right now.
I think the odds of them joining was like 1,000,000 to 1. So they're like everybody that cashed in on that bet has won a crazy amount of money as a PGA Live merger, man. 1,000,000 to 1.
Well, at least those guys.
Imagine just putting in $1 bet that you're like, hey, I'm just gonna leave it there, and if fucking in 10 years people were expecting them to maybe join forces, these guys within a year of them played one full season, 6 fucking tournaments last year to now a couple this year.
Hypocrites, man. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm getting out of the whole was that a right decision or the wrong decision long term.
Yeah.
But the PGA is a bunch of fucking hypocrites because the amount of money that they cost their players,
Everyone in that league.
right? I'd be pissed. Like, first of all, we're talking about like Matsuyama for I think he had 400 million, right?
$400 million for because he's kind of like a Tiger Woods-esque player. Like he can take off
that too. Tiger Woods got
PGA. Like in the PGA, there's so much talent, right? But if he had gone to Live, like he could have been a dominant force in Live. That's why they offered him 400 million because they're like, not only are you gonna come in as a PGA player, you're bringing all of Japan behind you.
Yeah, they have a lead.
You know how much of a market Japan itself would be to the Emirates and like the Saudi fund? Like that's just gonna be money, and he rejected that offer. And that was like a life-changing offer. Like Brooks Koepka, all these guys said that money wasn't just for them. They're like, we're making enough money. That's money for our kids, like generations to come.
Well, imagine guys like, 400 million for him, but Ricky Fowler had a chance for 75 million. He was never, or will never make that with anything he does on a PGA level.
He would only be able to maybe make that from now till the moment he retires, which would have to be a minimum of like 25 years from where he is right now to 20 years. He would have maybe totaled that, and not from golf, obviously. It'd have to be a lot of sponsorship deals.
Well, it was like 4 years, like 75, 80 million dollars. They had some incentives and things like that in there as well, depending on how well he did, etc. But I'm not only it was shocking, but I know from like the liver, like we fucking told you guys should have done it the whole time. And then from the PGA side, there was guys who found out about it from fucking Twitter.
Yep.
Like actual players who were against it. And I know like, the Saudi Arabian, they've had their atrocities and all the other issues that they've had. But at the end of the day, we know that money talks in sports.
Right,
money always talks, no matter what happens, right? People buy Nike shoes. People buy, people watching the Air movie on Prime, right? Or they went to theaters. No matter what happens, money talks at the end of the day.
110%.
And in this play, I think the PGA fucked over their own players.
100%. You're right on that. And I think just going back to your last point of, the Saudi fund and the Saudi government's, done all these atrocities in the world. Those are atrocities that are just known to us, right? We don't it's not like the U.S. isn't the #1 atrocity country in the world.
Yeah,
they've been waging wars, secret wars, wars in your face. You're bringing up look at companies like Apple, like they're making their phones, cobalt mining, all these kind of bad things that these companies that are from the U.S. that are also doing worldwide.
Yeah.
Yet you're condemning just one nation out there, but now you guys are sleeping together. You they're bringing in the main guy from Live Golf now, not Greg Norman, but the actual guy from Saudi Arabia that runs the whole Live connection. He's now going to be a board member.
He didn't even know about it. Norman didn't even know about it.
Yeah, no, he didn't. But the top guy that's coming in now, and he's going to be on the board of the PGA.
Yeah.
And they're going to put in an amount of money that's not going to be disclosed to get into the PGA.
Yeah.
But PGA will still have majority ownership.
Well,
so now they're going to have a part ownership because it's not only Live and PGA actually joining, the European Tour, the DP World Tour.
That part I get. But the thing that pisses me off if I was a PGA member would be, these motherfuckers are now going to get rich, where they cost us the opportunity to do the same fucking thing. Because if we had left the PGA, the value of that would have gone down and we would have gained. Now, again, PGA is going to make the money. And yes, PGA players are going to get paid more.
Yeah.
But do you think some guy's getting $400 million? I doubt they're going to pay him $400 million.
Nope.
Even no matter how long that contract is.
Nope. And I think this is actually going to be, this is probably the best deal that Liv could have ever gotten.
100%.
Because now you're going to be riding on the back of PGA for TV rights, for shows, whatever is going to be done now, even paying all the payments that are going to be done to players and stuff. They don't have to do all these big funds just for like a Dustin Johnson or these guys winning. Now it's going to get spread out. So they're still going to have to pay those massive contracts to these players.
Yeah.
But those contracts, like, they're going to run out eventually too.
Well, and on top of that, it'll kind of be like it's golf, and then you've got your different organizations, and they're going to have their own leagues and everything. And then on top of that, there'll be like the majors and other.
Just like how Europe does, soccer leagues, which is awesome. It's fucking dope.
Like the
you don't
Champions
have
League and stuff.
Yeah, like you got Champions League, you got Worlds, right? Like you're as a player, you're not just stuck in one league. You're actually, oh, hey, I'm gonna go play for Manchester. Hey, I'm gonna go play for Brazil, my country. Hey, I'm gonna go get transferred, or you can get basically loaned out to other teams too.
Yeah.
Then you can get loaned out to another team in like Juventus playing out in a different
PGA going to live for like a tournament or something.
So like now think of PGA guys are going to be able to now go into live events. So you're going to be able to go into different events, and like think of it for a PGA guy though now. Yeah, they're going to be pissed, but now if you're good enough, you'll be able to get into also live events.
It's gonna
So
be
the team events and stuff like that not only have to do the PGA bullshit.
I think the up and coming guys are going to benefit a lot from this because they were never subject to the potential money that they would have been given from live. But if your guys, I mean, for example, Tiger, 800 million, I think for a guy like Tiger, it's not as much to him, but 800 million is still 800 million dollars, right? So no matter how much Tiger makes, 800 million is 800 million, right?
Yeah.
So 400 million for Matsuyama, 75 million for Ricky Fowler, and there was a couple other guys at 200 million, a few guys at 100 million, right? So those guys are the ones who get screwed over, even though they made a lot of money already in their careers. They got screwed out of those big payouts. The guys coming into the PGA now, they're going to have the opportunities to be able to play at these different tournaments and build their income more. To begin than where these guys were at. So for them, I think it's a great. For overall for golf, it's great.
Great.
To me, it's just the PGA just bent over so quickly to Saudi Arabia, and we're like, okay, let's make a deal, guys.
Without
And talking to their own fucking members, right?
And talking to the media, like talk to your players.
That's why they did it like
talk
that.
to the media, kind of let out the thoughts that, hey, we've changed our mind, blah, blah. Not just, hey, one time. I bet Saudi Arabia, I bet the fund came in and they're like, yo, we'll give you guys like this much money. Look, we were about to give Tiger Woods basically what he made his whole PGA career, plus endorsements. From his start to now, he made over $1 billion.
Damn.
But they're about to give him $800 million in just a one-time, like him joining the league. But his whole PGA career, he's made over $1 billion. So they almost hit the $1 billion mark just by a one-time deal.
So we'll see. I mean,
it'll be fun. It'll be fun to watch.
Interesting. It'll be very interesting to see how this fully plays out with the tournaments and who's going to be playing where, right? So,
I think the best thing it does is now the world golf rankings are going to be fucking finally back to one. Whereas now, like, guys like Brooks and DJ, all these guys fell down so much because they stopped playing the PGA.
They'll probably have like two rankings. One is your league rankings, like with, he's ranked number one in live.
Yeah.
But he's ranked, it's like,
you'll have your worldwide.
It's like UFC style, right? Where you're ranked in your division.
Yeah.
And then you're ranked for pound.
The worldwide ranking, that's overall ranking. So your worldwide ranking can be like you playing in different leagues.
If they're doing that, I honestly think like, it gives me WWE versus WCW vibes, right? Like this could have played out. And you know what? Full Swing was actually there. Yep. So I haven't watched it yet. I'm gonna start on that. Good. I'm going to. So
good, man.
Let's move past that point.
Yeah.
But Full Swing was there. They're like, yes, they caught the players meeting and everything when it all went down.
Man.
So that is gonna make them so much money for that potential piece of it. So I can't wait to see how this plays out.
Yep.
I feel bad for some of the players, and I feel bad, but at the same time, there's opportunities for other ones. So.
And I think the only guys that actually knew that there was a very high chance of this was Tiger and Rory, because they
weren't consulted.
No, trust me, they were consulted.
I don't think so.
So what actually happened is Tiger and Rory did that players meeting. They ran that entire players meeting. There was no other single golfer got to go sit up there and talk.
Right.
Rory McIlroy ran it with the commissioner. So Commissioner McIlroy and Tiger are in talks at all times. What happened is once, remember how against Rory was against it?
Yeah.
He flipped his tune. And he was like, you know what? I don't mind playing with them. It is what it is. He practices every day with Brooks Koepka. They are all living in Jupiter, Florida, all hanging out with each other, playing at the same courses. They said now on TV and when you watch the Full Swing, of how they hang out and like see each other because they're at the same courses playing, like practicing. The moment they found out, and I bet Monahan, the commissioner, was kind of like, hey, there might be a chance.
Yeah.
They came up with the idea of we're going to start our own league.
Damn.
The PGA has never, ever, look at how much they're fighting Live. They've never given a player his own
Yeah,
league.
that makes sense.
Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy got to start their own fucking league. And not only that, they have the top brands, top entertainers, top athletes invested in it.
Yeah.
And now that this happens, and just before all this happened, like, Rory guys were 100% like, you know what, we don't mind the Live golfers. They're talking to them at the tournaments. They're the only guys that did it. Whereas everybody else, even the guys that were the commentators, were like so against Live. If some guy came on and said something about Live, they would be like, hey, why are you talking about that? Like on live TV. That's how against it they still were. But Tiger and Rory eventually weren't. And the moment they got their own league, now watch when the comments come out. They don't give a fuck that this is actually going to happen because they have their own league. They're already making separate money on a totally different league, plus what they're going to be playing, because Rory's like one of the top players right now in the league.
We'll see, man.
No, they have to. Those two guys are connected with the league. They're making the highest money. Watch when you watch Full Swing, and you see the power Rory actually has in the league. Every guy in it looks at him as like a LeBron and a Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is Tiger Woods, and LeBron is Rory McIlroy.
I was gonna ask as well with all this shit. Are those lawsuits now done then?
So a couple of them got thrown out now, but like Phil Mickelson still going through like lost money and shit like
He's
that.
going after the PGA, right?
He's going after PGA.
yeah.
Liv is now going to take their names off all that, so he's going to be able to sue them for. I think he might even just leave it now because he's going to be allowed in the PGA events.
Yeah.
But he does want to recoup money he lost because then remember he didn't show up to like a couple majors then, and like it's just
Yeah, he got fined like a shit ton of money for that, didn't he?
yeah.
So
Moving on, we got
we have much. What else do we have left to talk about?
tiny bit of F1 here, man. We got Verstappen, obviously wins
He
again.
wins again, yeah. I don't follow enough of it, but when I do follow it, it's like I swear he wins every fucking time.
Verstappen and his teammate Perez are usually like the top leaders. They never really lose much. But Lewis Hamilton has finally got himself, on the podium a few times, 3 or 4 times, and he got it here in Barcelona. Lally had a chance actually if he had gone to Barcelona.
That was roughly around the same time, right?
And Mercedes got both their guys on the podium, which is like huge because they've been just in the standings getting their asses beat. Their car, something's just wrong with it. It's not like a top performer.
They've had issues this year.
Red Bull, I don't know what they have under that hood, but fuck, man, it's the secret sauce, dude. They got something in there that just
That's why they were kind of like Ferrari back in the day, where everyone in the Ferrari had all the power because they had the best cars.
Nah, man, it was Mercedes, dude, 7 years in a row.
But no, prior to that, like Michael Schumacher, and then Mercedes took over.
Even Schumacher days, it would be like them. Some other company would come 3 years, they'd run 2 years, somebody 3, but then Mercedes came in 7 years, and they should have won their 8th, which was super controversial. It should have been 100% a Lewis Hamilton win. They would have been 8 deep, which was already 7 wasn't ever done by a single guy. And now you got Verstappen, who might, if he stays like this and stays healthy, could be like some new world record-setting guy.
It seems like it's like with F1, there's always a guy who takes over for a period of time. You had Schumacher for a bit, right? Then Lewis took over. And then you had there's always some guys who win here and there, but then now it's Verstappen's time.
Yeah.
Right? So I think he's got, it feels like whenever I watch F1, that there's always a guy, and he's not good for just a year or two. Like these guys dominate for years, 4, 5, 6 years of.
Usually 3 years max.
I feel like, didn't you say Mercedes just had it for like 7 years?
It's the only team to ever do that.
That's crazy, though.
Nobody.
Right? So, I mean, how long has Verstappen's run been going on for now?
2 years now.
Has he? So he's got one more good year, and you're saying that
2 years he's been doing decent, but the thing is, it's not always sometimes on the driver. Now it's more been about the cars. They've done every year rules change. Like you can't do this to a car. They add a rule. You can change this back to a car. You can put this body part on it. You can't put this body part. Then they have a day where they show off their cars before season starts, and all the players go and look at each other's cars and like, what the fuck is that? Why do they got that on the back, right? So you're just trying to figure out what can I do?
Well, right now everyone's trying to figure out what the fuck Red Bull's doing because they got the fastest car in the entire
Red Bull, right? And they have their manager.
Yeah,
he's like this kind of like I think he's a German kind of background. Like he looks like like a villain of a movie. Like even when they do F1 their TV show, like they made him kind of a villain because he's behind Verstappen, and Verstappen him are the villain team taking over like a king that's been ruling for 7 years long, and now there's somebody new king wanting to come, right? So it's like a Game of Thrones, basically. Like, who's going to be...
thinking in my head.
Yeah, like, who's going to be on that podium as first, and then who are the two side pieces of a second and third at every match?
Oh, it's summer of F1 right now, right?
It is,
They're
man.
going to be, probably, like you said, basketball, hockey's going to be done soon. This is kind of where F1 takes over, baseball takes over.
Golf comes in.
Golf comes in, right? All the, outdoor kind of sports is taking over.
Golf's only got a month left, July, and then playoffs start in August, man.
Yeah, and then September, they kind of wrap up their season.
Yeah, season's done.
There's a major coming up, though, isn't there? Isn't it US
got the U.S. Open coming up, and then the British Open's in July.
So this is going to be, I feel like our next podcast is going to be a bit more to the...
They got the
UFC
RBC Canadian Open coming up in
Toronto.
Toronto.
I know.
By the end of the month, I was hoping that it would have been around this time.
They always keep it in Ontario, right?
Yeah, because they have way more
many sponsors out there.
Yeah, it's just a bigger metropolitan area. We've gotten. I know so long
when I used to work there, their head office and everything is based out in Toronto, right? So it makes sense that all their. It'd be nice if they brought some tournaments out to Seattle, BC,
Straight up.
that area. But
yeah. Well, Seattle had that Whistling Straits that one year for one of their majors.
I think it was the one where Dustin Johnson messed up on the par putt.
Jordan Spieth won that one. That's when Spieth was.
That was his last
25
win, right?
sitting on 25 mil.
That was his last one, though. That DJ fucked up, and then he won the following year after that. He got his first. So I think that pretty much concludes it for this week's.
That's it. Other than one shout out I had for people and the viewers is check out for UFC McGregor Forever.
What's that?
It's a documentary on McGregor.
Ooh.
And it's pretty legit. It shows like the whole, like the first episode, I think it was.
Did he produce it?
He produced it. And in the first episode, I think the entire episode is him and that Khabib fight.
Yeah.
Him prepping, him going through it, what happened after. And it's just, I've only watched, I think, the first
I think it's only been a few episodes, you said.
Yeah,
right?
I think I've only watched one or max two. But it's been so good to kind of see, again, another guy that's like, done it. Been from the bottom to the top and now kind of on his fall. And does he got a chance for redemption, or is he too comfy?
Is this his lead up to the, what do you call it, like him versus,
Basically.
I think, who's he, is it Poirier?
No, it's not Poirier this time. It's the other guy. They're doing,
It's not Gaethje.
No, they're doing
this fight, what is it, the UFC
They're doing the TV show right now.
fight, what is it, where, he is fighting soon, isn't he?
Yeah. Chandler. So him and Chandler are doing this show.
The UFC Tough Enough, right? And then he's going to have his fight. When is his fight supposed to be, like August?
I forget the date, but I think it's set now. I think
because the Ultimate Fighter story is coming up soon.
He's saying he wants to fight like 3 fights a year, which,
Wait, McGregor fight 3 fights?
Yeah, he wants to be 3 to 4, he said. He threw that high of a
Okay,
number.
let's just start off with one without
fight.
getting injured,
Yeah.
and then let's go from there.
And they also show that in there too, the leg injury
yeah.
and how he got through that, because it was an injury that mostly no guys really come back from. We saw what happened to Anderson Silva. Chris Weidman still hasn't even come back from that same injury, a broken leg, man. Like it's a massive injury. It's usually never good for a guy to try to come back from that because you're not going to be the same.
Well,
but he is juicing right now.
Yeah,
100%. And Joe Rogan stated, he actually spat back at Joe Rogan for saying that. He's like, guys, have you seen a picture of McGregor right now? He's like, this guy's definitely on that sauce. There's a reason why he's not getting tested right now. And there's a period that when you are ready to fight, that they start your testing. So he's not even, he doesn't have to test right now.
Because they haven't announced this fight, right?
Yeah, they haven't announced the date, I think. But even like the whole time right now, he never had to test because he was never like, I'm ready to fight.
Yeah, if you're not an active fighter, you don't have to be tested for anything, right? So
I think that concludes this episode.
Yeah. So well, next week's podcast about next week or so, we'll see might have an NBA champion. Feels like we're going to have an NHL champion.
Yeah.
The Stanley Cup winner.
Yeah.
It's already 2-0 Vegas. We didn't even get to hockey, I think, in this particular one, right? So we'll just do a quick blurb on hockey right now. 2-0 Vegas. Motherfuckers, the second championship appearance in 6 years. They might win a Stanley Cup over the Canucks, the Sabres, all these teams who haven't, 40, 50 years.
They're already going to get a chance for it.
Right? 6 years, and they already got the title, man. It's fuck you, Vegas. I'm actually cheering for Florida, but they've been out, and I would never thought I would cheer for a team led by a Kachuk.
Yeah.
But here I am cheering for the Panthers.
A lot of Canucks fans, just for the Lou reason. Bobby Lou, comment I've ever seen related to NHL has always been, "Hey, Bobby, like we're only cheering for your Panthers right now."
So we'll see. I mean, I'm cheering for Panthers. I hope it goes to Game 7, or hopefully Panthers win in 6 and win the next 4. But yeah, next time we come up, we'll have some new champions. We'll have some draft news, UFC, golf.
Cheers.
Put something together for you guys, and take care. Enjoy your summer.